Hello and welcome to another edition of Your Money, Your Life with Black Enterprise, our podcast series focused on all things financial wellness. I'm Alfred Edmond Jr., Senior Vice President and Executive Editor of Black Enterprise, and I'll be your host, of course. And this episode of Your Money, Your Life is being brought to you by our friends at Prudential. Listen, we are entering a brand new year, a year that will be unlike any other that we've experienced before, unlike any to come. As we move into 2025. And I'm very passionate about this idea that it's not just financial literacy. Yes, increasing our knowledge is important, but it's also about changing financial behaviors. And a lot of times that has nothing to do with our education levels or literacy levels. And that's what this show is all about. So I have a great guest, probably one of the very first guests ever on Your Money, Your Life. When we launched this podcast, man, it's got to be 3 years, maybe 4.
Right.
Who is just the perfect person to kind of give you some inspiration, some direction, and some ideas about how to achieve financial wellness in 2025. Please welcome to the show author, speaker, corporate director, former New Jersey Secretary of State. I could go through his LinkedIn bio and burn up another 5 minutes. But for the sake of this conversation and our relationship, he is the founder and CEO of the dFree Global Foundation, which I'm honored to be able to say that when I was editor-in-chief of Black Enterprise Magazine, you invited us to be your first media partner for that important initiative. So welcome to the show, DeForest.
Well, thank you so much. And not only were you our first, you may have been our only media partner because, listen, Alfred, you have really exemplified, first and foremost, the spirit of Earl Graves, who was one of our great pioneers who in the 70s basically told all of us, listen, we have our civil rights and now we have to focus on economics. Most of us, as a young leader and even older leaders, were putting all of our eggs into politics. And while I believe in politics, Earl Graves was really at that point like a voice in the wilderness saying, we can't put all of our eggs in politics because it's economics that drives politics. So Black Enterprise has been the standard bearer. And when I came to you talking about dFree and the $1 billion challenge and the relationship that I felt we needed with Black Enterprise, I didn't have to sell anything. You were ready to go. You said anything you need, call us. You helped me promote the idea of Blacks on corporate boards. You promoted the $1 billion challenge, which now we've helped people pay down about $21 million in debt. So anyway, you've been our only, what I would call media partner. Now we've had media coverage, but you're the only partner.
Wow.
So thank you.
I'm honored deeply. And anytime you mention my name anywhere in association with our late great founder, Earl Graves Sr., who I've gone on record many times, is the most impactful person that I've ever met in person. Again, I work at Black Enterprise. I get to meet a lot of outstanding people, you included.
Right.
See them up close and personal over the years I've been at Black Enterprise. But just to be mentioned in the same breath with Earl Graves Sr. is.
Well, and let me just add this little tag to that. Earl Graves was good friends with a man named Aubrey Lewis. Aubrey Lewis was the first Black FBI agent. And after the student sit-ins at Woolworths in North Carolina, Woolworths hired Aubrey Lewis to be their top Black executive. And as an executive at Woolworth, Aubrey not only extended Woolworth into a kind of what we would call today corporate social responsibility that made them a leader, but he also did a lot of work organizing other Black executives, and he and Black Enterprise, he and Earl Graves were great friends. When Aubrey died, I preached the eulogy at his funeral, and Earl Graves was there, and it was the only time I had an opportunity to thank Mr. Graves for his leadership, for his inspiration, and to explain to him how much of an admirer I was. And I'll never forget that. I mean, it was an honor to do a great man's funeral, but it was even a greater honor to have a chance to connect with Earl Graves in person and tell him how much I appreciated him.
And to your point, that's why you're right. It was very easy to commit to wholeheartedly to dFree because dFree was an absolute manifestation of what Mr. Graves had in mind when he launched Black Enterprise, the evangelism around economic empowerment and
Right.
engaging in the capital markets and having leadership roles in major corporations and building the Black entrepreneurial class. And of course, dFree was the next logical thing, that we have to be able to manage our money effectively in order to finance
Yeah.
all these other initiatives, whether we want to build careers in corporate America, or we want to launch and build businesses. And now we're in an environment where you probably have to do all of the above during the course of your working life in order to achieve your goals. Before we go too far, I do want to get updated on what's going on with the dFree Global Foundation. Sometimes it seems like only yesterday we started it, but it's come so far, doing
Yeah.
so many great things.
Well, the dFree brand, as you know, started as a Bible study in the basement of my church in Somerset, New Jersey. I served as pastor of First Baptist Church in Somerset for 30 years. And midway through those 30 years, I realized that the church was growing as an institution, but I was concerned that the financial wellness, the financial strength of the families was not growing commensurate with the growth of the institution. And who wants to have a strong church with financially weak members? And so 15 years in, 2005, I really switched my focus from building the institution to building the families financially. Listen, as a pastor, it was critical that we urge people to tithe and support the church. But I believe it was more critical that we help families focus on the money they don't give to the church to to basically facilitate their being able to give more money to the church. And so we started in 2005. And 5 years into this work, CNN came along, did a documentary on our work. We called it dFree because we needed a brand and a curriculum. And when CNN came along, Soledad O'Brien said, "I'm putting you on full blast. You better get ready." Well, prior to that time, I was just, I was teaching Bible study, preaching sermons. It was like notes on the back of a napkin. But I decided I need to write a book, because if she was going to put me on a 90-minute documentary, I needed to document what I was doing. And so in 2010 and then 2011, the documentary aired on CNN. Over 14 million people saw it. And you'll understand this because you're a media guy. We still get calls, especially from churches, saying, "We saw you on TV, bring that to our church." And it's really, really amazing, because that was like 14 years ago. But we did that. We did the workbook to accompany the textbook. And as I began selling books, I realized that a lot of people couldn't afford the book, first of all. And a lot of our churches could not afford to pay for speakers and training. So I formed the foundation in 2012, and I took all of the book sale money and put it into the foundation. And then I used the foundation money to hire people to send out to do training for churches for free. So that's the model. And to update, what I do is through my business, Corporate Community Connections, I create content, I form partnerships, and then through our foundation, we serve the community for free. So to update you on where we are, one, we have combined physical health and financial health through our flagship event, FinFest. We have this event called FinFest where we have workshops, we have entertainment, we have recognition, we have inspiration. And this year, for the first time, we had not only workshops on finance, but we had workshops and services on healthcare. So RWJ Barnabas in New Jersey and Prudential partnered, and both of them loved the idea because, listen, you know this from what you do in your personal life. If you're not healthy, it doesn't matter how much money you have.
Right, right.
And so physical health, mental wellness, emotional wellness, and finance, they all go together into what you described earlier as a freedom lifestyle. So we're doing that, and as we move to around the country, we're looking at 2 or 3 other cities to do the same model event using local healthcare resources. So that's thing number one. Thing number two, I wrote this book, as I mentioned, in 2010. The whole world has changed since 2010. There was no DoorDash in 2010. There was no TikTok in 2010. And so what I've done is I have actually gotten my publishing rights back from my publisher, because my publisher wasn't really that interested in the movement. They made their money back and they're fine. And now I'm updating the dFree book to include all of the contemporary data to include things like online gambling and some of the things that didn't exist in 2010. So that's happening. Third thing that's happening is that I'm about to release what I call dFree Digital. It's a really a $2 million investment, taking all of my speeches, all of my books, all of my workbooks, all of what we learned, and we now have a digital mobile first platform where people can go through modules. There are 18 different modules on the time value of money, on credit, on home ownership. And those modules teach what would have been taught in a classroom setting or in a book. And then at the end of each module, there's a link out to the resources to help people engage with solutions that were taught in that module. So that's exciting. In fact, this is the first time I've talked about it publicly, and I'm happy to announce it on this platform, which is the premier Black economic platform.
I love it. I love it for so many different reasons. As you know, I am passionate about this whole health is wealth message.
Right.
It's hard to build wealth if you're sick or you're dead.
Right.
and actually, we launched another event platform that I was put in charge of called Black Enterprise Health is Wealth, where we did health sessions, and we did it in Nashville last year. We did it in Atlanta this year. We're hoping to bring it to New York next year. But this correlation between physical, mental, emotional health and financial wellness is not a coincidence. It's
not
tied together directly. I do a lot of public speaking around the country, especially over the last post-COVID, about this connection between capacity to build wealth and how that's directly correlated with health and longevity. And the fact that if you're doing it right, you should make most of your money after the age of 50. But unfortunately, too many Black men are dying in that window between 50 and 60, and too many Black women are alive, but they're not well enough to really maximize their potential, their earning potential across any number of industries and opportunities. So as usual, like you said, we are so in lockstep. One of the other things I love about dFree is this challenge of scaling up financial education tools for the masses. And I know you remember we had the Black Wealth Initiative when we Black
That's right.
magazine. That people come up to me and tell me they bought their first house because of the Black Wealth Initiative, or they got out of debt because of that. And that was also an initiative where I went around the churches making presentations in the 2000s, early 2000s to 2010, and it was very effective where we were able to go, but you can only reach but so many people. And I had actually a full-time job running a magazine, so it wasn't like that was my main job. And we had a few other editors that were trained to do the presentation. So I know it was came out of just Bible study in your church or prayer sessions in your church, but this idea of using faith-based communities and as a network, and now you're building a digital platform. This idea of scaling it up and making it accessible so that it doesn't have to be you personally or me personally going to some location to make a presentation.
Well, the challenges have been scaled through media and through digital platforms. When I say the challenges, I mean the marketing efforts that tap into people's emotions, the algorithms that follow people around. I tell people all the time, you go and look at a pair of shoes on your phone, and if you don't change your cookies, those shoes will follow you for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And after 3 or 4 times, you'll think God wants you to buy those shoes, So since we have this pervasive, ever-present marketing and messaging 24/7 everywhere, it's important for us to take our message to compete with the ubiquitousness of those messages. And then it's also important because we're now getting older, and the people who used to be children are now adults, and they grew up as digital creatures. These young people today in their 20s, they've been online all their lives. It's not new. It took COVID to make some of us older people go online, but for these young people, they don't know anything other than a device and a platform. And so I think, and I've thought this a long time, before COVID, we made a strategic decision that we would have to scale using digital platforms primarily built for the mobile device. I mean, whoever thought that we'd have a phone that was a camera and a computer all in one? I mean, I still remember dial-up telephone.
Right.
That's how old I am.
Right.
So taking advantage of technology. Now it costs money. And what I've been doing, Alfred, is I've been saving money every year to be able to afford having a top-notch technology developer to make sure this is not homespun. This is AI driven. It's interactive. We've got media involved. It's animation. It's multicultural. And what I'll do is send you a link so that you can look in and see what it is. So that when we launch next year is the 20th year of the brand, and that's when we plan to launch in a big way this mobile platform called dFree Digital.
Well, definitely, we definitely want to be on top of that, both for myself and for Black Enterprise, to make sure
You'll love it. You'll love it.
Plugged in. So let's get to the conversation at hand. Okay, so we're coming into 2025. Sometimes I say that number and it doesn't even sound right to me, but
I know
we are. and some people have come out of the holiday spending season, maybe not in the greatest shape in terms of their budgets and their credit. Others may not have done badly at all, but it's a new financial landscape, and our mission, our shared mission between dFree and Black Enterprise, to help people do better year over year. So as we approach the new year, what are some things that you would tell our audience around both setting financial wellness as an intentionality as they move into the year, and then some of the things they can be thinking about doing to bring that intentionality to fruition during the course of the year?
Yeah, well, thanks, Alfred. As we approach the Martin Luther King Black History Month season, I'll spend a lot of time, as I do every year, speaking to all kinds of audiences, not just Black audiences. And what I say to Black people and non-Blacks is this: when you look at Black history, if you're Black, it should be instructional. If you're not Black, it should be inspirational, because from an economic perspective, Black people have been miraculously resilient and creative and innovative coming out of the enslavement period. I mean, when we look back at 1921 Tulsa, Oklahoma, and the horrors of the burning down of Black Wall Street, I mean, that's one part of the story. The other part of the story is Black people didn't get to Tulsa until about 1907, which means that in 14 years, they built a Black Wall Street, which is a phenomenal thought. And so what I want the country to know, what I want Black people to know, what I want financially fragile Americans to know is that if Black people could have done all of what we did, we formed banks, we formed insurance companies, we had our own private airplanes, we had hotels. If we could do that under the oppressive treatment of American racism, then certainly we can do today with what we have the kind of innovative economic activities that we need to do. So what that says is that there's hope. I don't care about national policy. I don't care about who's in charge of the White House. The fact is, if our ancestors could do what they did, anybody can do anything. So that's the backdrop. That's the message. There is hope, and there's always a way.
And now going, I share that sentiment, because I tell people every time I get discouraged, all I got to do is look over my shoulder. And my parents and their parents and their parents.
Absolutely.
Wait, I'm doing really well, because of, like you said, it's everything you said, what they've overcome to get us to where we are today.
Yeah, on a personal level, people ask me about my turning point. You mentioned, you really described me when you said you can make more money after you turn 50 than before. That's my testimony. But the catalyst for me was my grandmother. When my grandmother died, she had raised 6 children without a husband who could work, because after their 6th child, he had a stroke. So he was wheelchair bound while she was raising these children. And when she died, she owned 3 houses, all paid for. And the 3rd house, which was a 4-family house in Brooklyn, she left to me and my uncle. And so I owned 50% of a debt-free house in Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn. And it was that house that got me started. So I said to myself, if my grandmother, who had no civil rights, she had no education, she didn't have credit cards, if she could do that under those circumstances, then what is my problem? So that's what I see when I look over my shoulder.
Yeah.
So having said that, there are some specific things that we have to do. The first is very simple. We have to pay attention. We have to open our mail. We have to read our bills. We have to stay engaged with our financial reality. In our curriculum, we challenge our students to spend 7 minutes a day, just every day, Take 7 minutes. One day, read your credit card bills. The next day, read an article. The next day, listen to a podcast. But pay attention and focus on finance because it's inescapable. You can get a letter from the bank and not open it, but that doesn't make the letter go away. So the first thing is pay attention. The second thing is to learn things you don't know. When I made up my mind that I was not going to leave credit card bills as my legacy, I started listening to different radio stations. I started reading different books. I started reading the Wall Street Journal instead of just reading Jet magazine. I mean, I still read Jet, but I mean, you can't change your financial status just on entertainment. And unfortunately, we are the highest users of social media. We're the highest users of television. I mean, we will binge on Netflix. We'll watch an entire season of a show in one day on Netflix. We need to binge on publications like Black Enterprise. We need to binge on platforms that offer financial education. And this is a lifestyle change. You said it earlier. This is not about education. It's about taking the time. We have 168 hours every week. We need to invest a good percentage of that time into understanding finance, looking for options, seeking opportunities, and taking risk. You can't create wealth by taking no risk. And I just think these are things we can do. And if we stay focused and if we stay hopeful and if we access information, much of which is free, that there are websites that are free that'll teach you how to budget, teach you how to invest. There are videos on YouTube that talk about the time value of money. I mean, a lot of my materials, my books, I have to sell my books because it costs to print the books. But there are free things we can do. And then finally, Dr. King talked about this in his last book, Where Do We Go From Here, Chaos or Community? Our churches, our fraternities, our organizations have got to do more than just have parties and annual celebrations. The Delta Sigma Theta sorority is my largest organizational partner. They use our curriculum as their national program. Zeta Phi Beta, National Baptist Convention. So we have organizations. We have the social infrastructure that we need to do anything we need to do. What we don't have is the agenda that's focused on the number one issue we face, and that's economic disparities. So if our organization, and they don't have to use my curriculum, but every Black church, every Black organization should be doing something to motivate, educate, and empower their members economically.
You bring something that's it's an encouraging point, but it's an important point not to pass by. Younger African Americans that churches or other institutions want to appeal to are now, I think it's Gen Z is the first generation that leans into the idea of investing. And unlike my parents who were locked out of the process, me who was born out locked out but grew up having access, but then took me decades to change my mindset from what I was raised to what I was exposed to by the time I came to Black Enterprise. Again, it's not just education. I got to Black Enterprise. Right. The literacy part was great, but it still took time for me to change my behaviors, change my attitudes. I mean, I still wrestle with it today. In terms of
every day, it's a challenge
every day. Yeah. I mean, what I was used to as the son of a divorced single mother in a working poor household in the working class community, where we were very good at saving, we were very good at pinching pennies, which is not a bad thing. But as you said, you can't save your way to wealth. You gotta invest. You gotta do other things. So my point is, though, I am very encouraged. Two of my newest mentees, because I'm passionate about mentorship, of how we bonded, and they're still in college because they do financial literacy courses for their peers at college campuses and in the communities in Chicago, because they're like, no, compound interest. No, you got to understand the rule of 72. And these men are 20 years old. So, but to your point, we need to institutionalize that. We need to feed them. It's not just a couple of kids on a college campus, that they have systems that we can do to replicate. Because you're right, the way we're marketed to, whether it's gambling, spending, shopping, is on steroids, and we have to build infrastructure to be able to navigate that.
Yeah, and the reason it does require a mindset change and a lifestyle change is because the messaging is focused on mentality. Advertising today is not designed to teach you the outstanding features of a product. Advertising today is designed to make you feel better about buying a product. so so if the psychology of advertising is designed to enter into your psyche, then then the solution is to change your psyche. You've got to change what makes you feel good. What used to make me feel good was driving a brand new car whose monthly payments took up half of my paycheck. It made me feel every time I looked at the car, I felt good. Now, what makes me feel good is when I check my investment account and see that it's growing every single day. I, I've switched the focus of my feelings, and that's what it takes. Because when I was in my 20s, I was financially literate. I was just a financial fool. So I wasn't dumb. I was just crazy. And today, crazy is facilitated by this marketing madness that infiltrates your feelings and makes you feel better spending money that you don't have. That's why we start with debt, because the reality is this: investing is important, but if I'm paying 21% interest on a credit card to get an 8% return on an investment portfolio, doesn't make sense because I'm still losing money. So if you want to get a 21% return on your money, pay off those 21% credit cards. And credit 80% of our community is in debt and consumer debt. Student loan debt. We take out student loans at a greater rate because we need more money to go to college. And the answer is you pay off your student loans as quickly as you can. If you make the minimum payment on your student loan, your grandchildren will be paying off your loan.
Ooh.
So we focus on debt as a beginning. dFree basically stands for no debt, no delinquencies, that's paying your bills on time, and no deficits, that's living below your means. And if you do that, the good D's are deeds, dividends, and deposits. You can deposit in your own account, you can earn dividends from your investments, and you can have your name on something that you own. So it's freedom from and freedom to. Every freedom movement has a freedom from something and a freedom to something. And so it's not just telling people what they shouldn't do or can't do. It's really giving people an opportunity to envision who they can become by showing them what they can do.
You know, the other thing that I really loved about the dFree movement, and it's even more important now because everything that we laid out about the nature of shopping and spending on apps on your phone online, is this idea of being conscious of your spending. And so much of our spending is unconscious. We don't remember buying it half the time. One of the things that I experienced during COVID, during the shutdown, was how often I thought I needed to buy something, and then I looked around the house and I already had it.
I already had it.
I remember that I'd bought it before. And
right.
So you talk about this idea of being conscious. You talked about earlier about really engaging your finances, so you're conscious. So it's not the first thing you do is not to hit the buy button. It's not to go to the mall every weekend as a recreational activity, or to just all those things, especially during COVID, that we did because we were kind of going stir crazy, and it was soothing to get a box on your doorstep, every day or every other day. But talk about, as we talk about 2025, and you did touch on it in terms of 7 minutes a day focused on your finances.
Yeah.
How we really have to wake up to our daily habits and behaviors so that we're conscious of the decisions that we make.
We really do. And that makes me think of the two things we really emphasize. The first is what we call spending leaks. To your point, if we don't document and really watch what we're spending, we will discover that we're spending money on things we forgot we're spending money on, or we're spending more money on something than we should. I'll never forget being at a church in Tennessee where the pastor of the church stopped listening to me and got on his laptop while I was talking to his leadership team. And I felt somewhat offended. But what happened was he had heard me talk about paying for premium cable, but only watching 6 stations. And he was so convicted, he went on his laptop and changed his cable subscription plan while I was talking. and by the time he got finished, he said he had just saved $99 a month by switching cable programs because he didn't even watch the shows he was paying for. He didn't watch the platform. Now today, it's even worse because now we have all of these different. We got Disney Plus, we've got Hulu, we've got Max, we've got YouTube TV, and if we want to watch a show, we will subscribe to a whole platform to watch that one show or that one football game, and not realize that every month we're paying for having watched one show. So by writing down everything that comes out of our account, whether it's debit card, credit card, cash, check, by writing that down and then analyzing it at the end of the month, every time we've had a group of people do that, they have discovered that they're spending money on something that they can stop spending money on. The second thing is even more kind of pernicious, and that is that if you don't read your bills, you will discover that your cell phone company, your utility company, other companies will add things to your bills that you don't even know are there. They will. You'll see a charge for $4.99, or you'll see a charge for $9.99, and all of a sudden these charges add up. And when you call the company proactively and challenge it, they'll take it off. But you have to know. You have to read the bill and don't just pay the bill. And then the other thing we've discovered is that interest rates that we are paying can be reduced sometimes simply by calling the company. So creating these behaviors that get in front of our finances, that track our spending, that observe our expenses, it not only does it save you money, but it boosts your self-esteem because now you don't feel like you're just a victim of economic forces, but rather you're in charge of your own life and in charge of your own money. That's why I love this theme, your money, your life, because you can't control your money until you control your life. We don't really manage money. We manage our lives, and then we use money strategically to reach our life goals.
Yes. I know we're running out of time, as I always do when I talk, but I got to get certain things in. When we talk about some of the tricks and traps that allow us to spend money unconsciously, I'm really have a sense of urgency, let's call it, around the whole idea of the free trial. You're like, oh, first month free, cancel at any time.
It's a trap.
And it's a trap. I mean, you never remember to cancel, or if you do, you pay 3 or 4 months at minimum, if not indefinitely. To your point about being conscious, I have to go back through my accounts and say, what did I? And I'm at the point now. If it says free, I run away from it. I don't.
I do too, because nothing's free. Nothing. What I do, if there's a free trial, what I do is I write down on my calendar like a week before the trial ends, so that when I look at my calendar, I've made an appointment with myself to go back to that platform and cancel.
Consciousness again. Conscious.
That's right.
Spending. If you're going to use the trial, but you're not going to use
it. If you're going to use it. I try not to use it, but there are times when I say, okay, I'll try this because I know now that I've developed a system where that will not put me in bondage.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
The other thing is 30-day return for free or return for free. These companies have calculated that if you buy a product, you're not likely to return it. So they don't worry about giving you a free return because most of us won't do it.
Yeah, it's amazing. We could just do a whole nother show and maybe have to have you back on.
But I do want to say this because Prudential is your sponsor, and I think this is relevant and important. We've been working with Prudential now for 14 years, and we've come up with Prudential this joint project called Blueprints to Black Wealth. Here's the key distinctive. On the one hand, there are people who care about economics and finance that only look at it from a what you might call a social safety net perspective. So they want to help people get unemployment benefits. They want to help people get homeless shelters, etc. So, and that's important. That's important. Then there are other people who are only interested in selling products that are financial services. What Prudential has done through Blueprints is this. Prudential has said, we fund a lot of organizations that just help people with their day-to-day lives. We also have products that can help people leave a financial legacy. So Blueprints for Black Wealth is really an ecosystem where the social safety net types and the financial product types are working collaboratively to make sure people have what they need to live a decent life on a day-to-day basis, but also can graduate into investors, people that have insurance that can leave a financial legacy for their children. And that's what's unique about where Prudential is and why I'm happy to be a part of the Blueprints movement.
We share the same thing. Prudential's been the most consistent sponsor of Your Money, Your Life since the beginning. And
Right.
obviously, we do a lot of other work with them as well. What would be, as we wrap this conversation, and I want to leave people feeling hopeful, no matter where they are right now in their financial journey. Some
Right.
people feel like they're in a very good place and they're looking forward to 2025. Others are unsettled, at least. And what do you think is the most important thing that people need to take into 2025 so that no matter where they're starting from, they feel confident and hopeful about where they can end up?
Yeah, I think it's kind of a two-sided coin with me. What has always kept me hopeful is other people's stories. So I offer people my story. If I could go from where I was living above my means. I was living paycheck to paycheck. I was paying last month's bills with next week's check. It was a mess. If I can go from that to where I have come and sitting on the boards of banks that wouldn't even lend me money, then certainly the average person can do it also, because I just changed the way I thought about my life and about money. Now, the other part is this: there are resources available for anyone who wants to do better in any category of life. There are resources available, and I would argue that 90 to 95% of them are free. There are places you can go. There are websites you can join. There are organizations that will help you for free. You just have to decide to find it and then to execute on it and stick to it, because it's not going to happen overnight. But you can put together a 3-year plan, 5-year plan, write down your goals, and you'll look back and thank God that you did it.
Yeah, it goes back to, and it's a perfect note to wrap up the show, this idea of intentionality. That it starts out
Intentionality.
with intentionality. It starts out with, I may not know how I'm getting to where I want to go, but I know I want to go. And
That's right.
I tell people, you take one step and then the next step reveals itself. And you take another step
That's
and then
right.
you learn something else new and you meet somebody or you get another resource and you go to an event you never would have gone to before on your 5th step because you took the first step. And
That's
next
right.
thing you know, because that's what happened with me. Again, on one side, because I was a financial journalist for Black Enterprise, I was learning it, but it didn't become real for me until I started taking steps in my own life and say, okay, maybe I didn't understand the stock market. Maybe my mother couldn't explain that to me. But let me find out what I can find out now. And
That's
you're
right.
right, you said there's so many free resources. It just takes, again, a shift in financial thinking, a shift in intentionality, a shift in the diet we consume. Like you said, it can't be all entertainment, some of it. And like you said, there's so many
Absolutely.
free resources out there on social media as well as and other digital platforms. And if we do nothing
Yeah.
else, we've inspired our audience to start leaning into that.
Yeah. The expression is the journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step. So take the step.
Yes. Listen, DeForest B. Soaries Jr.,
Thank
I
you.
love you. I'm so glad to call you a brother and a friend. Thank you for
Great
always
respect.
just, bringing wisdom and inspiration to Black Enterprise and to me personally. Thank you for being a guest on Your Money, Your Life.
Thank you, Alfred. And thanks for all that you do. And whenever you need me, I'm just a text message away.
All right, bet. This has been another great edition of Your Money, Your Life. This episode of Your Money, Your Life was brought to you by our friends at Prudential. I'm Alfred Edmond Jr., Senior VP and Executive Editor at Black Enterprise. Thanks for joining us, and we will see you next time.